Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Natira Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jai Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai, Jai Shri Radha Govardhana ki jai, Krishna Balaram jai, Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrinda Devi, Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai. All glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to the assembled devotees, all glory to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Govardhana. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 7, verse 37. Narayanam namaskritam narocharam narotaram devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye nastapadeshu bhadeshu nityam bhagavate seve uttam shoki bhakti bhavati naishtaki. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. I'm going to have to use my phone because I do not have my glasses. I cannot see. 3rd Canto, Chapter 7, 37. Okay. Repeat after me. Tatvanam Bhagavan Stesham Katida Patisankramaha Tatemam Ka Upashiram Ka Usvid Anuserate Tatvanam Bhagavatam Stesham Katida Patisankrama Tatemam Ka Upashiram Ka Usvid Anuserate Tatvanam Bhagavam Stesham Katida Patisankrama Tatemam Ka Upashiram Ka Usvid Anuserate. Okay, word for word. Tatvanam, of the elements of nature. Bhagavan, all great sage. Tesham, of them. Katida, how many? Patisankrama, dissolutions. Tatra, thereupon. Imam, unto the Supreme Lord. Ke, who are they? Upashiran, being saved. Ke, who are they? Who? Svit, may. Anuserate, serve the Lord while he sleeps. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lost it, hang on a second. Okay, translation. Please describe how many, this is Vidura, right? Speaking to my tray. Please describe how many dissolutions there are for the elements of material nature and who survives after dissolutions to serve the Lord while he is asleep. Repeatedly, please describe how many dissolutions there are for the elements of material nature and who survives after the dissolutions to serve the Lord while he is asleep. Purport by Prabhupada. In the Brahma Samhita 5:47 and 48, it is said that all the material manifestations with innumerable universes appear and disappear with the breathing of Mahavishnu lying in Yoga Nidra or mystic sleep. I guess I'll read that. Yakaranava jale bhajati sma yoga nidram mananta jagadanta saromakupa adara shakti mavalambya param swamurtim govindam adipusham tam bhajami shaika nisvasita kalam matavalambya jivanti loma vilaja jagadandanata Vishnu man sayid jaskala visesho govindam adipusham tam bhajami. Quote, Govinda, the ultimate and supreme personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, lies sleeping unlimitedly on the causal ocean in order to create unlimited numbers of universes during that sleep. He lies on the water by his own internal potency, and I worship that original supreme Godhead. Next quote is, due to his breathing, innumerable universes come into existence, and when he withdraws his breath, there occurs the dissolution of all the lords of the universes. That planetary portion of the Supreme Lord is called Mahavishnu, and he is a part of Lord Krishna. I worship Govinda, the original Lord. End quote. After the dissolution of the material manifestations, the Lord and his kingdom beyond the causal ocean do not disappear, nor do the inhabitants, the Lord's associates. The associates of the Lord are far more numerous than the living entities who have forgotten the Lord due to material association. The impersonalist explanation of the word aham in the 4 verses of the original Bhagavatam, Hameva, Shameva, Grihe, etc., is refuted here. The Lord and his eternal associates remain after the dissolution. Viduru's inquiry about such persons is a clear indication of the existence of all the paraphernalia of the Lord. This is also confirmed in the Kashikanda, as quoted by both Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, who follow in the footsteps of Srila Sridhar Swami. Na chayavante hi yad bhakta mahatyam palaya padi atorchu tukile loke sa eka savago yaha. Quote, the devotees of the Lord never annihilate their individual existences, even after the dissolution of the entire cosmic manifestation. The Lord and the devotees who associate with him are always eternal in both the material and spiritual worlds. Translation again. Find it. Please describe how many dissolutions there are for the elements of material nature, and who survives after the dissolutions to serve the Lord while he is asleep. Ganam ganam salakaya sakshush unmilitam jena tasmae shri guruve namaha vanchakalpatru vishya kripa sindhu bevacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming for Bhagavatam class. Unfortunately, our scheduled speaker must have broken down somewhere. So this is a continuation of the many questions. I think Sri Gavacha mentioned 40 questions are asked in a row. Imagine that. I've been asked 40 questions. Generally, you ask 2 questions. By the time you answer the first one, you've got no idea what the second one is anymore. So these are very great sages. Maitreya is a devotee. He was very fortunate. He was able to hear Lord Krishna's final instructions just before he departed this world, when he gave this wonderful, spoke the Uddhava Gita, spoke to Uddhava, 1,000 verses were spoken, and Maitreya was able to witness the whole account. So it's very, very, very fortunate. And that Uddhava Gita is very significant because it was for the devotees specifically, because we know Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita on the battlefield, etc. But we see later on, deep in the Bhagavatam, the 11th canto, this Uddhava Gita is spoken. And he specifically gave these instructions to Uddhava, and he said, this is for the devotees that are left behind, the devotees I wasn't able to see. So Krishna, these words of Krishna are for those who got left behind. Anybody here been left behind? Anyone still in the material world? I am. So this is to be able to now get this insight from Maitreya is very wonderful. These questions are being asked. It's going to take, what did Nishin give us? It's going to take the rest of this Canto 4 and part of Canto 5 to answer all these questions. So significant transcendental minds these great sages have. So today with the questions being asked about this transcendental breathing of the Lord and the devotees after the dissolution of the universe, which is quite an interesting question. In other words, once the universe is all wound up, does anybody hang around? Is anybody left? It's an interesting question. So this will be elaborately explained in later verses and chapters. It's very interesting when the Lord breathes, the universes come out of him. When we breathe, we only get bad smells that come out of us. And we have the audacity to claim to be God. At least some people claim to be God. We become very puffed up that we are thinking that we're equal to God, or we are God ourselves, but we don't cut the mustard. We breathe out bad smells, not universes. It's quite extraordinary in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It explains that this breathing of these universes, it just takes several seconds for the Lord, that's all. And we know in that several seconds, a whole lifetime, the Lord Brahma is lived out. And that's described in years in the Bhagavad Gita and other places as 311 trillion 400 million and something years. One breath. So, and then if you want to wind it back down to our humble selves, it's pretty insignificant. So to think that we are something great this is why we have to cultivate this knowledge. It'll bring us, even if we don't want to be humble, through knowledge we'll become humble. Because once you realize how insignificant we are. There's one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, I think it was Brahmananda, about this verse we chanted in the morning, Trinada Pishesha. This verse was chanted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he asked Prabhupada, I can understand, maybe us, but why did Lord Chaitanya chant this verse himself? He's the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada gave an interesting answer. He said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he realized he was 1/10,000th the tip of a hair. He realizes 1/10. So that means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the mood of a devotee. He's a bhakta avatar. So that's the mood of the devotee. He we see that the acharyas are very humble, because once you realize how great Krishna is and our insignificance, just again through knowledge you have to become humble. You have to realize, actually, I'm not the head honcho here. There's a bit more going on, and we realize that we are very little. And thus humility. And it's described that you can't enter the spiritual world unless you're truly and honestly humble. So we have to come to that position that we are not great personalities, and that actually we're insignificant, and our glories will be in how we humbly serve the devotees and our spiritual master. That's the position of the living entity. We're not a big grand personalities as such. So this is very interesting that this past one reminds me of this verse. Remember when, I think it was in Dwarka, there was there was a Brahma that all his children were dying at the time of birth. Remember that? In the Krishna book, in the Bhagavatam. And then eventually Arjuna said, I will protect you, and if I can't protect you, I'll enter the fire and leave my body like that. So again, another child had disappeared. Arjuna was about to enter the fire, and Krishna came along and said, hang on. He said, I know where they are. Well, we'll go and find them. Isn't it? So, and then they travelled for a long time. They travelled through the whole universe. And then they travelled through all the coverings of the universe, which is each layer of the universe is 10 times greater than the previous one. So imagine in terms of distance, it's inconceivable. And eventually they came outside of the universe. This is on Krishna's chariot with Arjuna on board, And then they saw Mahavishnu had taken these children, and simply he took these children so he could get the darshan of Krishna and Arjuna. Mahavishnu wanted to see the Lord himself. Quite interesting. What's more interesting how transcendental Krishna is, because we know how much time is going by, right? Every time, we were just hearing now, every time Mahavishnu reads, there's a whole universe has come out and go back in. So they're having a darshan discussion and spending some time with Mahavishnu. How many universes would have come in and out during that time? Many, many, right? Interesting, eh? But Krishna is so extraordinary and so beyond time that they were able to go back and that Brahma was there still waiting in that current time. Pretty far out, eh? Pretty far. So Krishna is beyond time, beyond his material energy. He's not affected by the elements. If there's other examples, there's a great famous, I can't remember his name now, a great king, that Kshatriya king that went forth for the demigods for some time, and when he came back, well, what was his name? Was it Mukunda was asleep. He was the one that burnt. Kadvanga, was it? Yeah. Kadvanga, yeah. So when it was time to go back, actually, so many generations and thousands of years had gone by that his whole family that was forgotten. It's like it never existed. So much time gone by. So because when you go into the higher planets, time works on a different level. So it's like when Lord Brahma stole the calves and the cowboys, he was just gone for a moment, like a split moment. He changed his mind, and 1 year had gone by. So that's it. But when Krishna leaves, it doesn't just go to the heavenly planets, it goes beyond the heavenly planets, beyond the universe. Time doesn't not affect him in any way. And that's transcendental. That's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's beyond time, and everything, including time, is his servants. It's chakra. Time is a servant of the Lord, like in the spiritual world. Time is a servant. We say there's no time in the spiritual world, but it's not quite like that. Prabhupada says the influence of time is not in the spiritual world, but time's in the spiritual world, but time's eternal, and time is a servant. It serves for the pleasure pastimes of the Lord, you know. Mother Yashoda says, calls out to Krishna in the card, well, it's time for lunch. So it's a pleasure time to come and enjoy lunch. There's different times for meetings and various things. So there's a reference to time, but it's not the same time here. The time that's been mentioned here deteriorates and destroys everything to the point where the universes are wound up back into the body of the Lord. And then mentions here, but during that time, the eternal devotees, they remain, they continue. Not only that, the Lord's dhams continue, Vrindavan, and we know that Jagannath Puri remains eternal. It's under the shelter of this banyan tree that cannot be destroyed by anything. So even the holy places are not destroyed, what to speak of the devotees. I read the other day that when the universes are wound up, the Vrindavan Dham disappears and merges back into Goloka Vrindavan. Interesting, huh? So it's never destroyed. And we know when the Lord comes, he brings his Dham with him. So the Dham comes and goes, but it's never destroyed. So all these devotees and Dham, things that connect directly with the Lord, they're not also influenced by time. Devotees are also eternal. And they re-enter those, and it's really devotees, the ones that enter those pastimes, they re-enter the eternal pastimes when the universe is wound up. And the other conditioned souls are where they're packed back into Mahavishnu, waiting for the next creation. Next time if you blew it, you didn't go back home, you got to go into storage again and wait for your next run. And it's a long time, and then again, it's explained that stem of the lotus, when the universes are created again, is burning hot from the lust of all the conditioned souls that are biting at the bit to come out and have another crack at chewing the chewed, trying to enjoy the material energy separately from Krishna, which is ultimately impossible because the spirit and matter cannot mix. Doesn't matter how much material facility you give the living entities, they're not going to be able to achieve any everlasting, deep felt pleasure. It's not possible. Oil and water don't mix. But again, we try. So it's explained that even at the end of when the universe is all about to be destroyed and burnt up, it's Sankarshan, Ananta Sesh. And one of the reasons he becomes so angry and burns up the whole universe, he's just angry. It's described that all the living entities that are still here didn't get it, that are still behind. He gets really upset. So it burns a whole lot down again. But anyway, you get another chance. But the idea is that these ultimately these universes are the Lord's pleasure pastimes. That's one of his legalists creating universe. And the way that you connect, the way he does is while he's having his little sleep here. Wow, while he's asleep. Imagine that. Can anybody create anything while they're asleep?
Bad dreams.
That wind, is that what you said?
Bad dreams.
Bad dreams, yes, you can have good dreams too. You can have good dreams and bad dreams. So for because you hear often people consider themselves God, but it's such a you can't. The word master doesn't cut such a big gap between the conditioned soul and the Supreme Lord. You can't. There's no way anyone can claim to be the Lord. And then it says here also that this Mahavishnu is only expansion of an expansion of an expansion. It's not even Krishna, the original Krishna himself. Krishna is such an enjoyer that he doesn't do the God stuff. He delegates his Godhood out. Lets Lord Narayan do the God stuff. He's too busy with his friends and girlfriends in the pleasure groves of Vrindavan, chasing his cows and playing with his boyfriends, stinking out and having little meetings with his other girlfriends in a totally spiritually transcendental, deep way that's beyond the mundane dealings of this world that we might want to compare it to. It cannot be compared. So Krishna is eternally herding his cows with his cowherd boys, and all these expansions are dealing with all the material worlds and making universes and managing the affairs of this material energy. Krishna doesn't directly get involved. What else can we say? Sorry, I've been put on the spot here, so it's a bit of a... Normally have a bit more time to think about it. But it's a very extraordinary question to ask, and especially I don't know if anyone's kept up with all the questions, but there's quite a few more to come. I might just stop here if you don't mind, just because I'm not really prepared. Has anybody got a question at this point in time about this verse or any other question? We've got plenty of time. Otherwise, I'm going to have to come up with something else to talk about. No, nobody. What was yesterday's question? Anyone remember yesterday's question? It's interesting. I was reading Srila Prabhupada. I was looking why we chant the verse before class, and Prabhupada says we should chant it. Just we sort of have a little pattern. We have the speaker chants it 3 times, and usually 2 or 3 men, and then 2 or 3 ladies, right? But Prabhupada mentions that we should just chant enough times till we've learnt it. So when we chant the verse in the morning, we're supposed to memorize it. Can anyone close their eyes and chant this morning's verse? Nobody? Kali Yuga. So we're downtrodden. So we can't even remember yesterday's question. I can't remember yesterday's question. Those, anyway, any questions? So no questions? So anyway, if you all read or not read the Uddhava Gita, 11th canto, it's just something to look forward to. Some parts are very similar in the Gita, but there's a lot. The Gita is 700 verses. The Uddhava Gita is 1,000 verses. So it's Krishna speaking directly 1,000 verses to his devotee, for the devotees. So it's something that's desirable to read. I think have they published it as a standalone book? I wonder if they have. It's maybe a wonderful book to have as a standalone book. So Krishna was leaving instructors, so Maitreya heard this. Now he's come across Vidura. After Vidura bumped into Uddhava, Uddhava recommended, considering himself more junior, recommended he inquire for Maitreya. And this is what we're going through now, and this will be the source questions for many chapters coming up in a couple of cantos. The Srimad Bhagavatam is just, that's what it is. It's full of questions and answers. Questions and answers, very deep. Like that. All right, I'm sorry I can't continue on, but my little brain is not prepared. I'll read the translation one more time to kill a couple more seconds. Please describe how many dissolutions there are for the elements of material nature, and who survives after dissolution to serve the Lord while he is asleep. It's interesting. How many? That's another interesting question. How many dissolutions? How many? Prabhupada, I remember a class and a recording of Prabhupada in Melbourne when he was explaining that Krishna stays for 125 years on this earth, then he goes to another universe for 125 years, and another one. And he goes, can you imagine how many universes there is? Because he comes back after 1 day of Brahma, which means 1 day, 1 night of Brahma. So if you think of 1 day, 1 night of Brahma as 1 day is 4.3 billion years, and the night's the same, so 8.6 billion years, right? So if you divide that, and I did this once just for an exercise, I don't know if it's an accurate way to do it, but if you divide 125 years into 8.6 billion, you end up with something like 60, 70 million, which indicates, I would emphasize the word, indicates how many universes are out there at one given time. And we're supposed to be the smallest one. And we are one tiny little entity, so to become, and that's only 1/4 of the creation. The bulk of the creation is the spiritual world. So again, is anybody feeling very significant here? You are?
But at the same time, very fortunate.
Yes. You want to speak on the microphone and tell me how fortunate you are?
Well, Krishna was here 5,000 years ago.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Very, very rare.
And Lord Chaitanya only 500 years ago. So obviously it's very sad that we had to look away from him at all. But
Turn it on. Get a little work there. Just hold it once, that's it. It'll come on by itself.
Because as you mentioned, it was 8.6 billion years is 1 day of Brahma.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously, within all those millions of universes, Lord Krishna was here just 5,000 years ago, and Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago. And can you imagine? We have the holy name. Yes, we are very, very insignificant, but very, very fortunate. Yes. So don't miss this opportunity.
No, of course. And sometimes when something is given free, we sometimes don't take it as seriously.
Yeah.
Because Srila Prabhupada sweated blood to give us this message, to give us Krishna consciousness. And it was given to us freely. None of us can, I think, claim we earned it. If we did, how we earned it, I don't know. But yet, we've been given the greatest gift that can be given to any living entity. And we are here at a very fortunate time. Yes, they're insignificant and fortunate, but also unique. I've mentioned this before because it's unique in the sense that Srila Jiva Goswami says that every living entity has a unique relationship with Krishna. And Krishna misses that. So we have something unique where we might be insignificant, but our eternal relationship with Krishna is very dear to Krishna. And that's what I'm saying now. I'm saying because that's an impetus also to become Krishna conscious, because we've actually got something, even though we're in a little 1/10,000th of a tip of hair, but we have a particular brand of loving bhakti that belongs to this living entity, to us, that we can offer the Lord to increase his pleasure. So that's another thing that makes it wonderful. Anybody else? More?
Thank you for the class. Could you talk a bit briefly, I don't know how much time we have, is it King Katvanga or King Kulashekar you were mentioning? He just had the demigods told him he just had a moment. Could you talk
No, that's a different one. The moment one's a different one, yeah. So there's a king that fought and wanted to go back. So what did you want to ask about the moment?
Just talk briefly about that in connection with today's case. That last time you mentioned.
Yes. When he was King Kulashekar, was it? He fought. He asked for benediction. Is that the one?
Yeah, they asked him if he wanted any benediction.
That's right. And he question he wanted to know when he was about. How long have I got to live? Right? Govardhana, was it? Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I get it mixed up as well. Yeah, so he asked, how long do I have to live? And they just told him a moment, immediately. Did he ask to go back to Earth?
He transferred himself, heavenly planets or earthly planets. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, he entered into meditation, and at that moment he achieved liberation.
That's right.
Just a split second.
He immediately became Krishna conscious at that moment. Right. And Maharaj Brix has been given 7 days. How many days have we been given? Anyone? No, I don't know. No, the answer is we don't know. You know, you could trip over on the way out and break your neck. I think you mentioned this in the class once, that in the statistics, in the previous year, 35,000 people died tripping over their own houses around the world. Yeah. So the point is, Maharaj Briksu was quite fortunate because he knew exactly when he was going to go, but we don't know. So that's why it's important that we remain as Krishna conscious as we can. Because again, you can come back again, but just, Prabhupada said not to risk it. If you come back again, you don't know what's going. Plus, there's a chance you're going to end up on heavenly planets. You know, that's often said. Imagine if you did 10,000 years in the heavenly planets, you come back after the golden age. It'd be very pleasant, would it? So yes, now's the time. And mercy is rampant. That's when Prabhupada received a phone call from the temple president in Calcutta, and he was reporting on a devotee that was doing some nonsense. I think it was an older devotee from the early days, and the president was reporting to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said to him over the phone, "You tell him to stop immediately, otherwise I will reject him." Right? You tell him to stop immediately, otherwise I will reject him. Just reject him, Prabhupada. And then he hung up the phone. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, with Prabhupada's secretary, was there, and he said to Srila Prabhupada, "Will you really reject him?" Prabhupada said, "No, I cannot reject anybody." And then so Tamal Krishna, being Tamal Krishna Maharaj, pushed Prabhupada a bit more. He started giving scenarios about someone could be that fallen that you'd have to, about if they do this or what. I don't know exactly what he said. And Prabhupada eventually said, it's not possible to go below the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. You can't duck under it. So that's the position we're in. Whether we like it or not, we've been netted up, signed, sealed and delivered. It's just a matter of surrendering now really to the idea that Krishna has taken us back. Oh, yeah, quickly. Now I'm going to go late now.
I was just listening to one class by Bhakti Swayam Bhagwan Maharaj, and he was saying that one devotee asked Jayapataka Goswami that how can we, is there anyone who can't get the mercy, something in relation to that? And then Jayapataka Goswami said that who can escape Lord Nityananda's mercy? And that was amazing.
So confirming the point, yeah. It's not possible, it's actually impossible. So that's, you're talking about our fortunates. Don't get in trouble for being late now, go on.
Only those who offend the Vaishnavas.
That's correct. But even even it's described, there's just delayed. There's just halt is your you might have to take a few thousand.
Delay, yeah. So even they have hope.
They still have hope,
Okay.
By the mercy of Nityananda, we all have hope. All right. Anyway, thank you kindly for sitting and bearing. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam.